Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. My name is Mary O'Keefe and I'm the Research Projects Advisor at the European Pain Federation EFIC. I'm delighted to be chairing the webinar, and on behalf of EFIC, we're really delighted with the interest shown in this topic, which really shows how much of a controversial kind of idea it is, and we're all wondering, will it be a positive thing or a negative thing, or maybe a combination of both. I'm chairing today's webinar, and please ask questions. We have some wonderful researchers today to give their insights. You'll see we have a Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and all questions will be answered at the end. So please get involved. Before we get into the main event, I noticed we have a good few attendees maybe that haven't had much experience of EFIC before. So I just want to explain a bit about EFIC, so who we are. So the European Pain Federation EFIC is a multidisciplinary professional organisation in the field of pain research and medicine. We're made up of the 38 European chapters of the International Association for the Study of Pain, so that's IASP, and we represent close to 20,000 physicians, basic researchers, nurses, physiotherapists, psychologists, and other healthcare professionals across Europe. So if you want to find out more information, check out the efic.org website. We have strong roles in like education, research, and advocacy. And I just want to give a quick plug for our Congress as well, which will be taking place in September in Budapest. So the theme is in the area of personalized pain management, which is also a very popular topic at the moment. And you can attend face-to-face or online. And if interested, please visit the Congress website. So now we're on to the main event. So ChatGPT, friend or foe or opportunity or threat. So I'm delighted to be joined by three wonderful researchers to give their insights. So we have Didier Boissera, Editor-in-Chief of the European Journal of Pain from France. So welcome, Didier. Thanks for taking time out for this. We have Nadia Solomon, Research Associate from the Imperial College London in the UK. Thanks, Nadia. Welcome. And finally, we have Neil O'Connell, who's a reader in the Physiotherapy Division in Brunel University, London. So if you all want to give yourselves a more comprehensive introduction as we go along, that's fine. But we'll get straight into it. So I'm thinking it's probably AI ChatGPT. I keep calling it BT, so it's PT. It's probably both a friend and foe, and there's probably benefits and harms. I've been playing around with it for a lot of non-academic purposes, and I've been really impressed by it. But then it dawns on me that this could be abused. This could be, it could have disadvantages. So I'll just open it up to you, our researchers. What's your impression of it so far? So if we to think of it as a friend, how do you think it could be useful to us in the pain research world? Who wants to go first?
Well, I don't mind starting, but I'm happy not to. I guess the way we approach this, or the way each person might approach this, will probably depend on their default position about whether they are broadly optimistic about life, science, and the enterprise of pain research, or broadly pessimistic. And I must admit, if you ask my family, they probably wouldn't tell you that I'm a glass half full kind of person. And so there is definitely opportunity here, but I see enormous risks. And where I see the risks, I see them as accelerants of problems that we already have, and we're not necessarily doing a great job of getting to grips with at the moment. So beyond problems of actual research quality, problems of research integrity, problems of research veracity. And I think there are substantial potential risks for a program or a piece of equipment that can be so convincing at delivering a narrative. And so when I was reading through some of its responses to my questions, I've asked it all the questions you're going to ask us in the workshop, Mary. It gave me some fabulous answers, but also questions on quite technical issues around pain. I was kind of a little bit shocked that it was able in seconds to articulate an answer that I felt was reasonably comprehensive. It was fluent. It was convincing. And that's a dangerous business, because I don't know what drove its answer. That's very much a black box, and I find that concerning.
Thanks, Neil. Nadia, what do you think?
I have to say I sort of probably sit in a similar camp to Neil. I was trying to be more optimistic, but I'm so scared to use it. I feel like I've taken a moral stance that I'm not going to put anything into it to train the machine any further than it already is able to get from the internet. And so I suppose my concern is that it can be so effective, and it may be impacting people's decision making, and yet we do not know how or where that information has come from or the integrity of it. And I think in the short term, there are more pressing issues and risks that may affect us. I think it may be bringing the paper mill to everybody's house and making it suddenly available. So then we've got this sort of added exacerbating issue where the things that we're already trying to combat may be made just that bit easier by ChatGPT. So I would echo Neil and say that I'm still too scared to even explore what it could do for me.
Nadia, is that outside of pain research? Have you played around with it, informally, just asking it silly questions, or have you just taken a stance of
I've
no?
just taken a stance of no.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen everyone else do it, so I can see how it works and what it is doing, and I've read about the machine learning behind it, and it is amazingly powerful. And I think that does present then opportunities for us, and anything that is going to make tasks, those mundane tasks or administrative tasks really easy, I'm all for. But at the moment, I just think we don't understand it well enough to employ it effectively or with confidence.
Yep. And Didier?
Yes, I would say that like the others, I'm a bit in between. I don't know. I would say that I tried it because I was curious. And like Neil, I have been very much impressed by the result. But still, I ask him it's very specific questions related to pain, of course, but also other subjects, other topics. And what you get is it's a very overall general answer, which looks very nice, looks very good. But when you go into details, you can find many inaccuracies. And another issue is related to the lack of accurate citations. You can ask for citations. You will get some citations for what ChatGPT is saying, but usually at least the ones that I saw were wrong. But anyway, to me, the main issue is that this is the very first device like this, and of course this will very much improve in the next few months or few years. And to me, the question is not should we or should we not use ChatGPT, is how are we going to live with it or other systems similar to it. And so me as editor-in-chief of a scientific journal, it's a major issue because, of course, we will have to take some decisions. Can we accept ChatGPT articles, at least articles signed or authors by ChatGPT, or should we should we forbid any use of it in any article? But I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to detect the use of ChatGPT if it is, I would say, smartly used. Because if you just copy and paste what you get from ChatGPT, of course, it's not perfect, far from perfect, but you can use it and improve the results of ChatGPT if you are yourself an expert. So it's in that way it could be a kind of assistant. It could be definitely a help. It could be very helpful. But so of course, I'm very concerned about it because we will have to take decisions in the next few months, and I'm not sure what we are going to do because it's a real challenge.
Okay, so we have a super important question here that we'll have straight away. It's from Felicia Cox. Hi, Flick. So is it possible for the speakers to provide, I guess, a quick description of ChatGPT, what it does and why are we concerned? If we to summarize it quickly.
I'll have a go. So it's I think they called it a large language model chatbot. So it's a program that's been trained on an enormous amount of information that is available on the web, and then it will use some artificial intelligence algorithms essentially to generate, to synthesize information and generate a kind of conversational, grammatically correct response based on that information around there. So it's a prediction tool. I suspect those predictions are always changing as people use it and as it continues to train on how the web evolves. And I guess, I mean, that's what it's for. It's, in a way, it's just a fancy search engine, but rather than a search engine that directs you to sources, it essentially describes and synthesizes that information for us. And you can ask it to perform any task. You could ask it, and it's worth having a play, to write a 500-word essay on the science of pain. It's very good at that, by the way. Or is there a pain matrix? I asked it the other day, and it gave me a very good answer that really captured the arguments around that at the moment. And where it changes, I think, compared to what we've seen in the past in this technology, is just how compelling the narratives are, partly because they're so grammatically correct, and partly because they really do seem to be able to sophisticatedly pull together different sources of information. So that would be my explanation of what it is, Flick. I don't know if that's helpful. And please, if I've missed anything, everyone else chip in.
Yeah, it's a very good explanation, but I would add that we know that actually ChatGPT do not understand what he's saying. So the question, so that's the issue. Actually, it looks very intelligent, but he's not intelligent. He's just using words and the probability to combine words together to form sentences which are grammatically correct, as you said. But the question is that it doesn't understand what he says. So we have to keep that in mind. Of course, it is extremely impressive to see the results, but still, when we have to read very carefully the answers, because you have many inaccuracies in the answers so far. But as I said previously, this is the first one of the first version of this chatbot, and obviously there will be improvements in the next future.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that they will understand that what they are saying.
It will need to update, because currently the current version doesn't have any knowledge beyond 2021. So if some views have changed hugely on things, even if we think about COVID-19, how knowledge is always building, changing, evolving, it doesn't have that ability at the moment to update. But I'm sure it will. You know, it will have information 2022, 2023. I wanted to ask, I'm a bit glass half full on some things. And Nadia, I picked up on, you said one slightly positive thing about it being able to do potentially some administrative tasks, you know, maybe for researchers, maybe could it free researchers time up to do more creative things? Could you just mention maybe a few of the administrative tasks that you see it maybe being potentially helpful for, and then we'll get back to the wider concerns again. But just to have a bit of the positive as well.
I think there are, there are lots of different potential uses for it, but where I see, I guess, least risk is in those sort of mundane, simple tasks that essentially, once you put in place a simple process or framework, you can be confident that it is performing them as you want them to do, and then that frees us, I suppose, to think, as Didier just was talking about. It's a machine that doesn't know what it's saying or understands itself. So I guess there will, if we look to the future, I think there will always be a role for humans. We will still need to have the ability to think and critically appraise any of the outputs from a ChatGPT or any other type of machine learning AI type tool. So when I think of automation of routine tasks, maybe it could be simple things such as scheduling or writing a basic letter, things like, I'm a meta researcher, so imagine it could perform my search and select the studies that I want to, that are relevant for the research that I'm doing. That would be hugely resource saving. So I'm thinking really small tasks that we can have confidence that the machine is performing them with the level of sensitivity and specificity and integrity that we want in the first instance. And I see that to be a safe and useful function.
Just to come in on that, I think that's all absolutely right. But ChatGPT is this first proprietary software that's out there. It's a black box.
Yeah.
But it's an example of something that could be spectacular if it wasn't a black box, if it was genuinely open tech. If we could harness this technology, the systematic review world has been working for years on trying to automate and have AI do some of these jobs for us. I wouldn't want ChatGPT to do it because I don't know how it's doing it. But if the community were to invest in harnessing this technology in a genuinely open way, then there's lots, I think, that we could use it for. The danger, I think, is when it is closed and we don't know what's underlying it and we don't know how it's weighting different sources of information or where it's taking it from, then it's more problematic. But from a potential perspective, the potential is enormous if it can be designed properly, I would think.
Do you think there's an appetite among researchers at the moment to develop something like it that's more open, transparent? Kind of sees that this is massive opportunity. However, it's a black box. We don't know how it's producing this information. Can we, like the systematic review tools, can we get something a bit more transparent? Or there's a part of me kind of saying to myself that as a young researcher, I'm kind of worried, will all this increasingly smart technology remove jobs for PhD students and postdocs? And is it being a bit selfish on my part?
No, I don't think so. I think that we still need researchers, PhD students, postdoc, etc. But we will need more creative people, and of course, all the I would say more or less systematic review business, all these kind of repetitive tasks will be done very, very effectively or very efficiently by ChatGPT or other machines in the future. So that means that we have to prepare to that, and it will be like, I would say, like PubMed. Everybody is using PubMed now, and we are not going to do a bibliography by hand. So it will be the same with these chatbots. Of course, they are going to improve. They are going to improve, that I said, and of course, they are going to be used for that. And they are so good as for systematic review, for summarizing, for editorialing, for editorials, they are extremely good for summary, to summarize something. They are extremely good. And of course, for a systematic review, I'm sure that they are going to be very good. But still, we will have to be, somebody will have to be behind it to control and to check. At least at the beginning, but in the end, I'm not sure that they will need any researcher. But that means that of course, researchers will still have to do something, and I would say that we will have to be much more creative, and at that, in a way, this is the essence of the job, and many of what we do every day is not that creative at all, and so that we will have, this will be the challenge for us to be more original, because of course ChatGPT or any other machines will not be able to create new data, interpret new data, etc., and to create new concepts. So that will be still our jobs.
So we've a lot of excellent questions here coming in. So thank you for these questions. And we might jump to them in actually sooner instead of leaving them to the end. But I want to ask the three of you to give maybe some examples of maybe following on from Didier's point. Can this machinery create new data? What are the concerns? I'm looking at Neil O'Connell because I know he has an example. What are the results of the kind of pain type questions that you, I know Nadia, you've stayed away from it, but Didier and Neil, have there been, give me some kind of examples of maybe how the technology has worried you when you've put in something about pain research?
Okay, so I did ask ChatGPT to be naughty this week, and just to sort of say why. It was an experiment for me. One of the things that in Cochrane, and I'm the editor of the Cochrane Pain, Palliative and Supportive Care Group, one of the things that we're interested in is trying to distinguish trials beyond bias, actually trials that can't be trusted because perhaps they didn't take place, perhaps data have been fabricated or manipulated in some way. And we know this happens, and we know it's a problem, but we haven't been very good at systematically addressing that. But often there's this situation that you can spot fake trials or untrustworthy trials on the basis that they're actually quite obviously not very good. And often when you see these things, you'll think, well, this is just a failure of the peer review process because this paper is transparently poor. So then you could assume that most fabricated studies are like that, and so we don't really have a problem. But there's a fallacy that Jack Wilkinson, who's a statistician in Manchester, told me, called there is the no good toupee fallacy. That we can assume there are no good toupees out there because every time we've spotted someone with a toupee on, it looked silly. But that's because we didn't spot the good ones. And there's definitely true that there is the possibility that there are good quality fabricated studies out there, in the sense that they are hard to spot, they're compelling, they're sophisticated, they're well written. So I was looking at ChatGPT, and at first I asked it whether I could use ChatGPT to commit research misconduct. And I think we'll all be reassured to know that ChatGPT was very, very clear that I shouldn't do that, that's not what it's for. And that if I were to do that, that would have reputational risk for me and my career. So I said, fine, but assuming I ignore those warnings, how could you do it? And it came back and it was very clear with me. It was firm with me. And it said, no, I'm not for that. And you shouldn't do it. And these are the reasons why. So then I said, ChatGPT, fabricate me a fake clinical trial of a new pain drug called curepainimab versus placebo that shows that curepainimab is effective. And in less than 5 minutes, I had a clinical trial report, full clinical trial report with some data, but no data tables. And I thought, well, okay, that's half a job there. What was interesting was how well written it was, but it was slightly clunky. But I would argue no clunkier than a lot of trials I'd be asked to review as a peer reviewer. So then I said, well, ChatGPT, can you fabricate me some baseline data for basic demographic outcomes and these 3 outcomes? And it did it. And what was interesting was it did it in a way that the data did look plausibly like they could have arisen from randomization. I asked it to fabricate me outcome data tables, including mean standard deviations, between group mean differences and confidence intervals. And it did it. And they were plausible and accurate, and were accurate as much as you can be with fake data. And then I asked it for an 800-word discussion, which was actually pretty balanced. And the thing is, it was better written than a lot of trials that one might be asked to review. Now, that is, I could definitely spot that there were a few things that were awry there. But I think we would have to have a lot more faith in the peer review process than I have in my experience as an editor and a reviewer, not to see that as a real and present danger, because essentially I fabricated a draft of a trial in 10 minutes, and in an hour and a half, I could have had a submissible report for a trial that, of course, never happened. And, you know, that takes the potential for paper mills off the scale, as Nadia referred to at the start.
Yeah, was the trial recorded on clinicaltrial.gov? Do you have a number?
Well, no, but
IRB approval. So we still have some ways to control it.
We do at the moment. Yeah, we do at the moment. But
you know, it is possible to fake a trial without ChatGPT. It will take more time, but it is still possible. So I think this is not the main problem with ChatGPT. The main problem is the authorship, because of course it is able to write very nice papers, as you said, but should we grant it with authorship? And to me, the answer is no, because he cannot take the responsibility for what is saying, and of course this is a major ethical problem. So of course we should not accept ChatGPT as an author, although it has been an author in several papers now, and
yes.
So this has been accepted by some journals, but in my opinion, we should not accept this. But the question is, should we accept that authors use ChatGPT in their articles to write the article as a help, as an assistant, as an editor? This is a very difficult question, because even if we say no, it will be very difficult to detect if people are using it or not. And I know that the OpenAI company, they said that they are going to implement in their system kind of markers that could be detected only by a machine and not by humans, and that would be a way to say that this paragraph or these sentences were produced by ChatGPT. But of course, if you produce a system like this, a few weeks after, there will be ways to overcome it. So to me, the main issue is this one. Can we allow people to use it? I think we have to, because even if we forbid it, they will use it. So the question is, how can we live with it? The question is not, are we for or against ChatGPT or other kinds of machines, but how can we live with it?
Nadia, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just was thinking about this as well, is that I don't think it would be helpful, I suppose, to say to people, don't use ChatGPT, because people may still use it. And I think, if anything, we want to have some transparency. And so there should be something, perhaps, as a part of living with it, is that we allow people to be honest that they used it. And, you know, maybe even ask people to state how they used it and where they used it, because only then will we really understand it well enough. I think it will still raise issues over responsibility and ownership, but at least there's some transparency in the first place, because like you said, Didier, I think if you say don't use it, people are still going to use it. So why don't we say people use it, and we want all of this information about how you used it, why you used it, etc. And at least then, as a community, we have some understanding and somewhere to go with it.
So this fits with some of the questions that are coming in from Esther. So can we accept manuscripts of authors which use the help of such an AI? So we might, but we need to explain how that occurred.
Yeah, yes,
Yep.
I think transparency, yes.
Yeah, and another question, do we need to ask in the submission system about this? So when you're uploading your PDF or your file to EJP, should there be, you know, when someone's asked about funding, conflicts of interest or whatever, is it an idea? I guess that's what maybe Esther is getting at, that you mention it there, maybe? Is that what you said?
I think it
Or
should
in
be.
the acknowledgements. In the acknowledgements, you can say, okay, as the paper was edited, or was the first draft was done by ChatGPT or other AI machine. So I think the best way is to disclose it, and that's fine.
There's an interesting comment here. I believe Turnitin are creating a tool to detect ChatGPT. So that's interesting. Thanks for that comment.
If I could come in on that, I mean, that's an arms race that they can't win, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can see why, but I suspect that in the end, you can't. You know, you won't be able to keep up with the tech. There'll be much less money invested in detecting AI-generated text than there will be in creating it.
Mm. Similarly, if anyone's used I was just going to say, if anyone has used Turnitin, it's pretty poor at detecting plagiarism right now. So I'm not sure, you know, how effective it will be. And, you know, there are just limitations to what you can detect.
I'm just catching up with some of the questions here. So Neil, one related to you. So when you asked the device to fabricate the trial, did you ask references for the data provided? So when it provided the baseline tables or the outcomes, did you ask a question, okay, where did you get this data from? Did it give you, for example, a center or study design where, or did it leave that bit out?
No, I didn't ask, because I'd asked it to fabricate that data. So I was quite happy for it to do it whichever way it wanted. What I would say, just coming back on, I mean, I think Didier is absolutely right that ChatGPT shouldn't be an author. And just to thank Felicity Cox, because she sent notification this morning that the Committee on Publication Ethics have made a very clear statement today, or this in the recent weeks, that ChatGPT shouldn't be an author. So you're absolutely right. We can't stop people using it. We shouldn't try. And then, you know, we can come full circle and think about the benefits. I mean, in a way, you can see how this can level the playing fields for authors who don't have English as a first language, who I think are at a disadvantage in the publishing system when English is so dominant. I think there are lots of ways in which this can actually, you know, promote an equality amongst researchers, just by, you know, improving and assisting quality of writing. But as Didier and Nadia have so rightly said, it's all about transparency. And in a way, as with any tech, we can't police against misconduct. Misconduct will happen whatever tools that we've got. I think what worries me a little bit is how easy misconduct becomes with ChatGPT, and how easy it is to make it look much more credible than a lot of efforts might have done in the past. Even if you don't have a great deal of knowledge or skill, ChatGPT can do the heavy lifting for you.
So yeah, on your point there, Neil, about inequalities and maybe helping people with that English isn't their first language, there's a comment here: as a tool, are we putting ourselves at a disadvantage? Example versus paper mills, fabricated papers, if we don't use it.
I don't think we're in a disadvantage against paper mills. I mean, paper mills will certainly be using it now, you would think. They'd be fools not to, because we're not competing against paper mills in that respect. We're engaged in a different industry completely. I'm hoping we're engaged in trying to produce high quality research that informs patient care, and they're engaged in a fraudulent operation of trying to make money parasitically out of our industry. So no, I don't think we're in competition with them. I think if we're using it, it's for very different reasons.
Although I would add to that I worry about it then being used in the future for making evidence-based decisions, I guess, because how will it detect between high quality research and fabricated research, or something that's come out of paper mills, etc.?
Yeah. Go on.
No, Neil, no, I have no idea. I just asked. Do you have any idea?
No, I
thought you were
don't have
about
an answer.
to
No, I don't have an answer. In a way, actually, but you're talking about that clinical decision-making end of it is in some respects, maybe one of the more dangerous places as we move from research to clinical decision-making. Because you could ask it a question in clinical practice and it will take some evidence and give you an answer. This morning, I asked it if OxyContin was a safe and effective drug for chronic non-malignant pain. And it gave me a very nuanced answer that really captured the controversy around that, some of the history. Actually, it was more balanced an answer than I think most people would have given me, because it's quite a polarizing question, that, isn't it? I mean, next time I'll ask it about Brexit and we'll see how it does. But then I thought, well, I wonder what would have happened if I'd asked it that question if it existed 10 years ago. When, and that worried me. And, it's going to be there. It's openly available. People will be using it like they use Google, but it's better, or it's superficially better than that, to help them make decisions. And because we don't know where it's basing that information on, not knowing what it's trained on, or how it's prioritizing that information, I see enormous risk in that, although we're moving just out of the research realm there, aren't we? But then again, patients use Google and come up with all sorts of disinformation. The difference now is that I would say that ChatGPT and its equivalent technologies are like a silver-tongued cavalier. They're so articulate that it's less like Google. That the uncertainty that you get browsing Google might not be there on the page with something like this.
There's a question.
Sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, with that as well, I do wonder how ChatGPT and other similar technologies may increase risks to patients, because they could be asked to, share their data for it, or their information that's and put it into the public domain for it to be able to make decisions about it. So, and I think maybe as researchers, we do also need to be cognizant of how patients, for example, may then look to use this tool, and how that would also then feed into the research pipeline.
There's an interesting question here, actually, two related questions, so I'll try and combine them. It's around, I guess, the impact of this type of technology on young scientists, especially trainees. So can you comment on what you think the impact, the use of chatbots on scientists, especially trainees and young investigators, from developing their own sense of the literature and understanding the nuances of the field? And the other related, I saw another related question. Yeah, we should be encouraging authors, especially young authors, to think for yourself in synthesizing the literature. So these questions relate to a question I had mentioned, is, do we need to include this in training for younger researchers, PhDs, postdocs? Do we warn them against using it maybe too liberally, and so on?
Again, it is useless to ask them to not use it, because they are going to use it in the first place. Anyway, so of course we have to accompany them and to train them to use it. Although we are trained ourselves, but as we do with PubMed, with the web in general, Google, etc. So they are fantastic tools, but we have to learn how to use them. And for young trainees, it's of course it's part of their training. So when I was doing my PhD, I did the bibliography by hand. So there was nothing like PubMed, etc. So I would have been very nice. I would have been very pleased to have some kind of PubMed to help me. So I spent a lot of time getting all the articles for my thesis, for example. So I think these tools are extremely interesting, but they have limits, they have limitations, they have advantages, and we have to learn all together how to use them. And I think it will, in the end, we will find a way to live with them.
Neil, do you want to reply to that?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, actually, I think in a way, AI is a misdirection here for us. What we're really interested in with early career researchers and all researchers is trying to create a culture of research that values rigor, transparency, openness, and quality. And ChatGPT is just a tool. It's just a tool. I think actually one of the ways we can respond to some of the risks of ChatGPT is to stop dragging our feet, as I see that we do a little, in terms of insisting on pre-registration, on openness at all stages of the research cycle, rigor and transparency. I think we still fail a little bit at making sure that the quality control in what gets published is really put into place. And Nadia, I mean, I see that at the clinical trial and systematic review end, and then, you know, Nadia can speak very well, I think, to the preclinical end of that. So I think we need to do better. This is an accelerant on our problems, but also a tool. I think it's another trigger for us to move very quickly to routine pre-registration and openness at all stages. But it's a bit like, you know, do you not let your kids on social media? Well, that's the world that they're going to grow into. That's the world we're maturing into. The world for future research isn't the world as we know it. So much better that early career researchers are grounded in what we consider to be quality and transparency than we worry so much about ChatGPT.
Is this training improving, Neil, around quality control? Like you said, there's loads of room for improvement, but do you know of any training initiatives, more things going on to make this more, I guess, comprehensively included for trainees?
I imagine it varies from institution to institution, place to place, person to person. I think there is a case for the pain community trying to come together to drive it a bit harder, maybe. I think there is a case for that. We've put in a bid to try and do something around that for the ERA networking bid recently. But yeah, I mean, I think these are real problems and they're uncomfortable problems. And because they're uncomfortable problems, they tend not to get the attention that they need. But I would say I don't know how training is broadly. I haven't done an audit of it, but I think we could probably all agree that that as a community we could do better. We should always be looking to do better anyway, right?
This would be a nice topic for ethic.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Can
Nadia.
Oh no, it's okay. I would obviously echo Neil, and I think one of the things that I do see utility for ChatGPT for immediately is trying to ground that culture of openness and transparency. And if we're thinking about developing young researchers and their critical analysis and those skills, actually using ChatGPT is a way of doing that. You know, ask it the questions and then critically appraise it, compare it. You know, they need to really, I think we would be naive not to incorporate this into training now, because this is the future and they're going to be far more adept at dealing with it, working with it, understanding its strengths, its limitations, its utility than you know we will be. And so it's got to be included now.
And I'm sure, you know, this will evolve as well. Like we could be having a webinar 2 years from now and have, you know, we're talking about the potential going forward, but we'll probably have more to say when, you know, it starts getting used more and learning as we go. So I'm just aware there's lots of questions coming in. So will we just run through them, everyone, just to make sure have we answered them? So the first one, should AI researchers who are involved in pain research start to think seriously on adding explainability and elements of responsible AI to ChatGPT system to start building more trust from the biomedical community? Have we? It's a good question.
Sounds like a great idea. Do we have a mechanism for feeding into the training of this chatbot or its equivalents? I think that comes back to that idea that what we really need is this technology, but truly transparent and open. But I don't know. I mean, if we did have a way of doing it, then it would seem like a nice idea.
Yeah, I think it's like what would we need to see for us to have trust in it? And at the moment, I think we don't have those mechanisms.
Yep. So the next question, can you comment on issues of plagiarism since we do not know how much ChatGPT extracts information in its own words?
Yeah, that's a major issue, the plagiarism, because we don't know exactly, as you said, we don't know from where the information is coming. And of course, there are a number of tools to check for plagiarism. They are not that good, not all of them, but some of them are not that bad. And so this is also one of the major reasons for why we should not accept. We should be transparent regarding the use of ChatGPT to write articles, because of this plagiarism issue. Also, not only the authorship but also the plagiarism. So yes, of course, this is a major issue because we don't know exactly where the information is coming from. But I've seen a website a few days ago, and the website was how to write your systematic review in less than 1 hour.
I need to go on to that website.
with ChatGPT, and we can also assure you we can check for plagiarism. So this is included in the package.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does very well with plagiarism because it does write it in novel words, and it's hard to spot. There was a Nature press piece recently where they submitted a bunch of fake abstracts to some journals, and they had an AI program to spot those fake abstracts. It only spotted 66% of them. So the AI tool missed 30-something% of them. When they got editors, people with experience to do the same task, it was essentially the same. They missed about 32-34% of them too. But I mean, it isn't actually plagiarizing. In a way, it's doing what we do when we write a paper. It's taking a bunch of sources and writing something new for them. Where it's not very good at the moment, and Didier alluded to this at the start, was in accurately attributing citations and sources. It will give you a reference list, but it won't be the right reference list. Exactly. But I can't see that lasting. I think soon it will be doing that very well, I would imagine.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, that was mentioned in one of the comments as well, as somebody asked for a reference list, and some of the references they said weren't even real references and others were wrong. Okay, so there's another comment here. For me, a huge risk posed by this type of technology is how much easier it makes for non-eligible participants to submit responses to research studies in order to receive any payment. We've already seen previous bots doing this, but ChatGPT makes such good answers that it's difficult to identify them as fraudulent. Therefore, we as genuine researchers putting the hours in may be unable to guarantee that our data is from genuine participants. It would be great to hear the panelists' thoughts on how to safeguard against this. Interesting. Thanks, Abigail. That's a good comment. Any thoughts?
My only thought is to actually, unfortunately, go offline, which of course comes with extra cost, extra resourcing, extra time, but actually to remove it from it being digital.
I suppose I would wonder, how big a problem is this? I mean, who has, well, actually, that's a naive question. Who is directly invested in corrupting the results of your survey or other type of research methods? And I suppose probably you should start any project online with a careful risk assessment of, are there parties out there that are looking to corrupt my responses in a certain way? I've never run a survey where I think anyone would care enough about the outcome, but that's probably my research. But I can see where there will be research where it will be in parties' interest to corrupt that. Maybe it starts with a risk assessment, but in a way, it's a bit like universities are wrestling with this at the moment. What we're going to see is the death of the summative essay as a form of assessment, and we're going to move to vivas, and we're going to move to short answer questions, or MCQs that you can't really use ChatGPT on. And I guess research is going to, where there's really risk, is going to have to not use the shortcuts that online has afforded us, maybe. But it's all pros and cons, isn't it? It's weighing up the strengths and weaknesses, and risk management is at the heart of that.
So there's a lot of interesting comments in the chat. I'll just stick to the questions. There's a question here. Are numbers calculated with a calculator less valid than mentally calculated numbers? Maybe ChatGPT could end up writing good articles of human-conducted investigations and supervised by researchers.
Well, it did occur to me when I was reading through some of the things that ChatGPT might do wrong, that I kept telling myself, oh, a bit like people, a bit like researchers, you know, they write things, but they're not clear on where the original source was. Oh, a bit like researchers. Some of the data might be incorrect, or a bit like a lot of papers I read. The discussion might not accurately reflect balance and limitations of the paper. Well, that's like 70% of papers I read.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so, and there is a, like Nadia was talking about how she felt a bit squeamish at the start. And there is a weird kind of moral dimension to this, that we somehow judge it more because we're not doing it, when in fact, as human beings, what are we doing when we have original thought, but making predictions based on partial information, you know, using algorithms that we don't have access to, actually. So it is interesting. And as it becomes more sophisticated, who knows, but I'm not either clever enough or well-versed enough in the philosophy of AI to go any deeper than that. But I do think we should probably sometimes question why we're questioning it just because a person didn't do it.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah. There's a question here, but I think we've already answered it. As a journal editor-in-chief, so this is for you, Didier, do we want to allow or encourage the use of a chatbot, even if it is disclosed? Are we suppressing an author or creativity? I think what you've said is we have to allow it because it's going to be used anyway, but we need to have more transparency around it. Or do you want to add more to that? Around the author creativity, yes, this is similar to the questions where are researchers not thinking for themselves? Are they not getting an understanding of the literature? But then again, that's hard to measure anyway, I think.
Yeah, yes, as I said previously, of course, I think that we cannot forbid the use of ChatGPT, but we have to disclose it. The author will have to disclose it in the article in some places. Yes, as I said also at the beginning, I think ChatGPT will be a challenge for our creativity, and we will have to live with him and with it, and to be more creative, to be better than the machine. And otherwise, of course, we may say that we don't need any researcher, any research. Okay, we just ask the machine, and she will, it will do the job. No, I think again, we have had a number of challenges over the last decades, and so this is one. Probably one of the most challenging ones, but still, I think it will be it will be a booster for our creativity, and especially for the young researcher. They will have to prove that they can do better than the machine.
There's an interesting comment here. So Simon asks, is it really important that artificial intelligence was used to write a paper? So I guess, you know, is it a big deal? The authors are responsible for the accuracy of the statements and data. In this case, it is just a tool, like Microsoft Office already gives suggestions for correct spelling and sentence structure. That is not a problem. I guess that's at a different level, but I understand that point.
No, there is a problem here with responsibility. When ChatGPT is not able to sign the authorship for a paper. So obviously now we have here a legal authorship issue. But again, ChatGPT cannot, to me, in my opinion, it cannot be an author, but it can be used, or provided that this is disclosed transparently by the author. But no, it cannot be an author itself. And of course, it will be, as I said also, it will be very difficult to check, to detect if the paper has been written or not by ChatGPT. So it will be only declarative. We will have to trust the authors. It will be so far it is not possible to detect this kind of production.
I have one follow-up question on that, Didier. So you said that the software shouldn't be viewed as an author, but you've seen other journals where it has been named as an author. How do you think those other journals made that choice?
Because it was the very beginning, and nobody had an answer to that. And now there have been a number of discussions, number of papers, and it seems that there is kind of a consensus for not allowing ChatGPT as an author. But of course, this can be discussed, this can be debated. For example, Science, the journal Science, has completely forbidden the use of ChatGPT for any article published in this review, in this journal. Even for editing, even for grammatical corrections, etc. So they are very clear. ChatGPT is completely banned from Science. This is not the case for Nature. The Nature group, they allow the use of ChatGPT not as an author, of course, but for editing or for revising paper. So I think it's a moving field. We are still at the very beginning. ChatGPT came out only a few weeks ago, in end of last year. So we are all learning as we go, and of course things are going to change in the next few months, I think.
So we probably have time for maybe 2 more questions. Nadia, I see you have a comment. So do you want to make that first?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think, like Didier says, it's emerging, and I wonder how journals have come to the decisions that they've come to, those that have given a position, because I think there's some quite big legal cases that are going through in the States at the moment, looking at not in research fields, but looking at the plagiarism and lack of attributing to. And so, there are reputational risks for journals if they perhaps take a position on allowing ChatGPT or others. Maybe in our research field, the money isn't big enough, but there's still a lot of money there. And it'll be interesting to see what comes of those sort of legal cases as to how that informs positioning in the future.
Yes. So there's a question here. Can you comment on the ethics of the bias being introduced into the AI algorithm, which is different than knowing an author's bias, because we do not know who is controlling creating the AI bot bias?
We just don't know.
We just don't know.
Actually, I was going to, at the end of the session, recommend there's a really lovely review paper by Eva van Dis that was in Nature a few weeks ago that covers a lot of what we've talked about. And there's a lovely line in this that it seems that the same biases that often lead humans astray, such as availability, selection, and confirmation biases, will simply be reproduced or amplified in conversational AI. And that's the thing. Number one, it's based on information created by humans, largely. Number two, we have no idea which information it chooses and how. So until there's transparency there, it's almost the unanswerable question.
Neil, if you want, you can post that link into the chat, or you can give it to me later and I can send it on to the attendees.
I'll bounce it over to you later. I'm not clever enough to do it whilst talking.
There's 2 questions. Oh, sorry, Nadia, go on.
I was going to say, I think we do need to be really conscious of that as researchers, that this inevitably could exacerbate the inequities that we already know and see.
We'll finish on one last question. I would ask the panelists to comment on how they would like to train their students to become the next generation of outstanding scientists. By thinking for themselves and reading source material, or letting a chatbot do this. Any final comments on that? It's like a nice positive way to finish. Like, what do we do to kind of get everything better?
They will have to.
We're not sure.
No, they will have to read. Of course, they will have to read the literature and to be able to criticize ChatGPT. That's the way that's what we are doing, and so that's what researchers should do. Should be able to criticize what is produced either by other researchers or by a machine.
Yeah, and there is one more comment here before I wrap up. Didier, there's a question, any rules or guidance that EJP will be making, but this is probably an ongoing thing that we might be able to talk about at a later stage. You know, it's probably, you know, you probably may not know at the moment.
No, I don't know. We are going to discuss about that.
Yeah, Neil, have you one last comment and I'll close
just
up
to
then?
come back on that point about how do we train the next generation of researchers, it's all about culture. It's all about research culture, and we need to start from a position of why do we do any of this? It's not for academic careers. It's about the pursuit of truth that can better serve people with pain, and the only way we do that is to prioritize transparency, honesty, rigor, openness, all of those things. And the best thing the community can do and early career researchers can do is to embrace those values regardless of the technology that's available. And I think we should be promoting that at all opportunities.
That's probably the topic of another webinar. That's great. Anyway, I'm going to close here. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone attending really enjoyed it. Thanks for all the questions and discussions. Thank you, Neil, Nadia, Didier, for the insights. Brilliant. We might be back again kind of talking about the benefits and harms of this. Anyway, have a good weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.